Testing 1, 2, 3. Can anybody hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Hello, who's online? Anybody?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Will. It's Linda.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Trying to get a hold of Dwight to see if he's available.
Well, I hope so. We advertised that he was. I'm just going to mute myself here and hang out till we get started.
Okay, super. Who's on the line there? Hi,
Hello.
how you doing?
Doing good.
How are your bees doing?
Doing great.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, right. How are you folks doing?
We're hanging in there. What about you?
Hanging in there, keeping busy.
Yep.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Dwight, how you doing?
Hi, Dwight.
Fine. My app was something happened to it. I had to reload, get a new app. That's what was wrong.
Sorry, guys.
So how's everybody at COBA tonight?
Cold?
Oh,
Doing
come
well.
on. Come on. It's chilly. It's gonna be nice tomorrow, at least in Western Ohio. It's gonna be 42 degrees. It's gonna be 42 degrees at your place too, or over there too.
I think so, yeah.
My bees may be flying at Tish tomorrow.
watched the Fairfield County beekeepers meeting last night with Dana Stallman. It was kind of interesting.
How does he look?
Good for an old guy.
We're all getting there.
He's 87 years old.
He said he was 80.
Huh?
He said he was 80.
No, he's not 8. He's older than I am.
Hmm.
I saw his birth date sometime back.
Uh-huh.
But if Dana says he's 80, we'll say he's 80. Does he have any bees down in North Carolina?
Yes, a bunch. I don't know how many, but he said he's got bees down there.
Any idea what type of stock he's got? Did he say?
No, not off the top.
Okay.
I don't know if he mentioned it or not, Dwight. I had some difficulty getting into the meeting myself, and so I may have missed, or I know I missed a bit of it. So he may have mentioned it, and I just wasn't online when he was talking about it.
Where does everybody live around Columbus?
West side, Galloway area.
Okay.
I'm in Delaware County, almost to Morrow County.
Okay. Know exactly where you live. I mean, I know. I'm
About
very familiar with the Columbus area. Will knows a little bit about my background. When I got back into beekeeping in 2008. I stumbled onto COBA in 2008, and I spent 2 or 3 years, 2008, 9, part of 10, worked with John George, and Dana was over there. We had a lot of fun. I took a lot of pictures. I've got pictures, 10-year-old pictures of a lot of people who are 10, 11 years older than 12 years older, I guess. No. We had a lot of fun over there at the Roth and Bueller Bee Lab yard.
it's a good group. I enjoy being a part of it.
Definitely, I know we've learned a lot.
Pardon?
I said, I know we've learned a lot.
Yeah. I go up 71 or come down quite. I have a Amish friend in Ashland County that builds my woodenware for me, Dennis Koblenz. And in fact, now I know a guy who used to be in charge of the Ohio Pheasants Forever. Payne was his last name. He lives in Delaware County. He has bees. And of course, Joe Lackshaw, when Joe was closer to Columbus, he had yards in Delaware County. I was to some of them. It's going to be more than this. I know quite a few people are going to join tonight.
Yeah. Med, you got your ears on yet? Med?
Yeah, that was a chore.
Quick question.
Yes.
Dwight asked me a question about Dana's presentation last night, or information he shared. Do you know if he indicated the breed of bees he has in North Carolina, or how many?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Okay,
I've got the, he's putting out that newsletter. Sounds like, was it weekly that he puts out something?
I believe it is
Yeah.
weekly.
It was, let's see here. Stallman Apiaries at AOL.com, and I bet that information is on there.
Okay,
Your audio is real good tonight, Will.
I'm using my laptop for a
There
change.
you go.
Almost 6:30.
Getting there.
When OSBA and OSU had their Queen grant in 2009, 2010. I went over there several days a week and helped Dana when he was producing the Queens. I got to know his wife Mary very well before she passed. We had a lot of fun. Dana and I saw there's a trick to releasing introduce some queens when on mating nukes. Anyway, to make a long story short, he released a unmated queen out of the cage. When she walked out, I could tell by her wings she had an attitude. She walked over
Oh, he's already
and
there.
stung a drone, which was very funny. Dana had never seen that happen before. Killed the drone. Apparently she thought it was another queen. I don't know. I couldn't get a picture of it. Oh, I saw, and 2 queens later, we saw the same thing happen again. Second queen did the same thing. We had no idea what was going on. Hey, I see the Wampler families on there. They're hiding.
Well, it's 6:30. Let's get the meeting started here. Actually, it's 6:31. Welcome to COBA's January 2021 general meeting. We have as our guest presenter tonight, Mr. Dwight Wells. He is quite the expert on queens and queen rearing and
Be
feral
careful.
bees and
Be careful.
I've known Dwight for a number of years. Got to hear him a couple of times down at Fairfield County, and it's been an interesting process. Looking forward to his presentation tonight. And anybody have any conversation they want to start short of the presentation?
What you're going to see tonight, the name of the presentation is 48-hour queen cells. That's kind of the foundation of the whole project that Sal Maxwell, who lives in Fairfield, he's a member of the Fairfield County Beekeepers Association. Sal and I are part of the Ohio State Honeybee Pavilion Committee. which unfortunately we're not going to have the state fair again this year, apparently, which is too bad. And I've known Zell for several years. Anyway, long story short,
One of the first customers today was Mr. Gingrich, but he comes in.
Zell's going to start producing queens down in Fairfield County from stock that was derived from feral stock that has high chewing behavior and all the attributes of keeping the mite populations down low, which is a great thing. It's taken a long time to get here, 10 years. I'm gonna keep all, hi Woody, I'll keep all my stories very, very short. I can't tell too many stories tonight, can't do that. A lot of fun. Richard said he'd be on. And Barb Letcher, she's gonna pop in. I talked to her today.
I'd like to say hello to everyone. It's glad to see your faces. It's good to see the Smiths again. Brad and Carol, thank you. And Jen, I'm not sure who you are.
Hi, I'm a brand new member.
Yes,
So it's nice to see all of you.
Is this your first year?
It's my first anything, yes.
That's 8. Look at it this way. You go by Jen?
Yes,
Look at it this way, Jen. I started beekeeping in 1954, so at one time I was a first-year beekeeper too. We all have been. We won't admit it.
okay.
At one time we were in your shoes. How old are you?
I'm 42.
Oh, she looks good too.
You look young
The
for your
bees
age.
know.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you look great for your age too.
You're getting in a good time.
I'm excited about it. So this will all be new for me. So
Where do you live at in your area?
I live in North Linden in Columbus.
Where?
North Linden, Cleveland Road, Weldon Avenue area.
In the city limits or outside the city limits?
Yes, in the city limits.
Okay.
He's a bit east of Clintonville, Dwight,
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
east of where I'm at.
Thank
Okay.
And welcome to the club, Jen.
Yeah. Don't be bashful.
That's
All right.
Rule number 1, especially in beekeeping, there is no such thing as dumb questions.
That's absolutely correct.
Because the bees are always writing the book ahead of us,
All right.
especially now.
Oh, looks good. I'm not gonna make one because I've already.
One of the things, folks, if you'd mute your microphones in the short term during the presentation, unless you've got a question, cuts out an awful lot of distractions, and we appreciate it.
Little Will, he's president now.
Who?
Will Merrill. You go, Will. Did he hear me?
Yes.
Oh, Will, this is Teresa Parker. I thought I was muted.
Yep, there's Teresa, and I see Miss Barbara there.
Hi, Dwight.
Hi, Teresa. How are you?
I'm so sorry.
How have you been? I haven't crossed paths with you for a long time.
I know. It's good to see you guys. My daughter was saying how young you and Will Merrill look, and she said the bees know.
Hey, when you've been stung thousands of times by honeybees, it makes a difference.
That's right.
Yes. Awesome.
Didn't you get one of my cactuses from Purdue?
No, I wanted one, but I was afraid our dogs would get into them. But my daughter was mad because she wanted it.
Oh, well, just FYI, I still have cactuses from Purdue in
Oh,
my sunroom. If you ever want a start, I can make that happen.
yes. How about when I see you in Lancaster?
Okay, we'll figure that out
Perfect.
this summer.
Yep.
We'll plan it out.
Thank you. That would be awesome. She'll be so happy.
We generally have, Dwight, we generally have a little bit of get together beforehand.
Sure.
At our regular meetings, we have a little bit of a food fest, and people get together and relax, and then meeting generally starts about 7 o'clock. We'll probably start a little bit earlier than 7. So, but
I remember the days of COBA. We had a food fest every meeting and pigged out and had a lot of fun before the meeting.
absolutely. Yeah. I agree, Barb.
Well, do we have time for taking any questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. My question is, how do you know at this time of year whether you have starving bees or not?
How heavy is your colony when you try to lift it?
Excuse me?
Can you lift the colony?
I haven't tried that one.
You can try like tip up the back of the hive and see how heavy it is. But I think it's supposed to be 40 later this week.
Tomorrow,
If you can,
42.
yeah, if you can take a quick peek, because you want to make sure that there's frames of honey where the bees are. And if the bees are all at the top, very top of the hive, then you're going to want to put some food on.
I've got some food in there.
Yeah.
And okay. So when it's above 40, you think I can check in there quickly?
Just to do a real quick check. I'm sure some of you others have some advice for him too. But yeah, I have like an insulated lid on mine, and I have that upper super that's empty, so I can just put food in there and not actually disturb the bees too much.
Yeah, Med's got me rigged up with something where I can look in there and see if the sugar cake has been hit hard.
Yeah, Randy Oliver checks this no matter what the weather is, but I think as long as we're fast, we can do it at 40-degree weather.
Yeah, you don't want to open up your boxes very long in the wintertime at all.
Just the top only.
Yeah, you don't need to expose the brood. We're just looking to see where the bees are.
Right.
It's been a little unusual this year, usually we've had at least a 50 or low 60-degree day in January the last few years, but we haven't had that this year. So it's been consistently in the 30s. We had when was it, about 2 weeks ago, Mark? It was 45, I think. Got a quick look in.
Yeah.
You want to remember, as time goes on, they're going to keep eating more. They're going to start raising more brood as we get closer to the spring. So even if they're good on food now, maybe by the end of February, they'll be running low again just because they're raising more brood.
So if they were eating the food, that would be a good sign.
Yeah.
That would mean I have bees.
Yeah, let's hope so.
If you know anybody that has a thermal image adapter for their smartphone, you can see if they're alive and where the cluster's at. Easy.
And you'll probably see the bees when you open the lid.
If you don't, take a flashlight with you and use your flashlight and it'll peek down. Now be careful. You might want to have your veil on because occasionally you'll have a bee, you'll fly out to the, because it sees light, it'll fly out. You may run into your face and fly up your nostril. I'm giving you a bad case, but just FYI.
Mark, have your wife get that on video if it happens. I want to see it.
Have your wife hold the flashlight.
Yeah.
No, that's me. I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
Now, if you're going to use a flashlight, make sure that it has a red light on it and not a white light.
So they stomp?
No, bees don't see the color red.
Oh.
Can't you put a piece of red film on it? No.
Whatever works. I've got a flashlight that's got a red light to it, and it really makes a difference.
Also, you can put your ear up against the wood and lightly tap on it and see if
You
you
know,
hear.
I've been trying to do that. Oh, you tap on it gently and see if you hear the buzz.
Yep.
You get a stethoscope.
I've tried.
Too.
What's that?
Get a stethoscope too. You can use it.
Just open it up and see. The odds are that you're going to see a few bees at the top. Now, you may see a lot of the bees up at the top. So just be aware. I was in some colonies last week, and a few of the colonies, they were on about 7 frames of eyes looking at me. FYI, just be careful.
Well, I've been digging out the month of December. I was digging out a lot of dead ones.
That's normal. On the floor, I mean, on the entrance?
Yeah.
How many's a lot?
3 or 4 times where there's 40, 50.
That's not terrible.
That's not terrible. And they seem to be small bees.
You got to remember, we're in January, and some of the winter cluster bees, the fat bees, were produced around the middle of August. So you go to August, September, October, November, December, January, 5 months. Some of the early winter fat bees are going to die.
Okay.
That's why the queen is laying eggs, has been since right after Christmas.
Huh.
A few,
Okay.
not many, a few.
All right.
Do you happen to have any? Hey, Joe Lackshaw's on board. Son of a gun. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
I haven't heard your voice for years.
I wanted to see what you were up to, Dwight.
Oh no! Now the pressure is on.
There's no pressure.
You saw the magic word of 48-hour queen cells.
I want to see what all you're working on.
Back to you, whoever we're talking to. Do you have any protein patties or anything like that?
They're in.
How big a chunks or anything like that?
I mean, 3, 4, 3, 4. I smashed them in there between the 2 boxes.
They're about 3 by 4 inches, I think, weren't they, Mark?
Yeah.
See if they have been, if they're still there or if they're gone. If they're gone, take some with you. And when you put your new ones on, only have them about 1.5 inches diameter. And spread them around, because that way the bees have more surface area to chew on. Hey, do you have any insulation on them?
Yes, I have an
Okay,
insulation
good.
box.
Okay.
Now, when I went in there before, they hadn't even touched it didn't look like they had touched the pollen.
What time was that? time of the
Yeah.
year?
It was probably last week.
Okay,
Did we have a warm spell? Little
Yeah.
something?
yeah.
Yeah, it was 40 some.
Yeah, it's 40 some.
Okay,
And this, so that doesn't, and I didn't see any bees.
if you open up tomorrow and you don't see any bees, put your ear, be careful here. I don't want
Yeah.
you getting stung in your eardrum. Use your common sense.
You
How,
could
how- how many years have you been keeping bees? Is this
Oh,
your,
I'm a rookie.
okay, I gathered that. I thought you probably were. Just be cautious, but you need to see whether your bees are still alive. And, but what type of equipment you have? 10 frame, 8 frame? 10 frame,
5. He's got 5
Five.
frame.
5 frame?
Yeah.
That's good. You're my hero. I like 5 frame overwintered nukes. How many, are they deeps?
Yes.
How many
2 of them.
boxes? Pardon?
2.
2 of them? Okay.
And with the insulation box on top, right, Med?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back in the day, at Rothenbuehler Bee Lab, I had a row of them that they all overwintered. Barb was there in the spring when we looked at them. She was there. So I like overwintering 5 frame nukes.
You can use a rubber hose like a fuel line hose to listen to them. Or
Oh, okay. Just
that's a cheap stethoscope.
okay. We'll give it. I'll give it all a try tomorrow. If it gets up to about 45. Thank you.
Dwight, will you have any videos or PowerPoints or anything you want to share?
No,
Okay.
I could show videos all night, but no, I don't have any tonight. I'd rather just, because it's gonna be a good hour's presentation. And I don't have a lot of time to do videos.
Well, it's good to see everyone here tonight. I appreciate your participating in our meeting and hope you learned something. I think we all will. Looking forward to Dwight giving us a presentation on his queen rearing processes. And hopefully we can incorporate some of that. If you want to start anytime, Dwight, you're more than welcome. A little bit early, but what the hey.
Well, if you want to wait for a while, I don't care. No problem. If you want to wait, just, Rod's not on yet. Ah, there's the kitty cat. Yeah, there's Barb's kitty cat. I love that cat. Hi.
He says hi as he bites my finger. Then I got a sleeping beauty behind me.
I see that. Yeah, she's fast asleep.
Yep. She'll wake up when you start talking.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So we have 25 people on board. Last night I did a Zoom for Maumee guys up north, Roger Myers's club. And we had 45 on board. It's good discussion. But now we have, since Dr. Lakshaw is there, he's an expert on 48-hour queen cells too, by the way. I'll give away his secret. In fact, if you go back earlier in some of the bee culture magazines, he did an article on 40-hour queen cells. Has anybody ever heard about 48-hour queen cells before? Okay. Barb has and Joe has. And while I'm thinking of it, what I'm involved with, there's there's a team of people that are working with me on the swarm trapping end. And Zell Maxwell, some of you guys may have heard about Zell Maxwell. He's down in Fairfield County. He's going to be producing 40-hour queen cells along with unmated queens. And if somebody wants any mature queen cells or mated queens, we're going to do all of them. And we hope to have a lot of fun this year, getting some good stock out that came from trapped feral swarms. Last year, we caught close to 200 feral swarms, and they're feral because they're out in the wilderness, number one, and number two, they have a very high chewing behavior, and they're dark. Queens, most of the time, the queens are dark, and there's no commercial bees within miles. We're out in the wilderness, and very gentle bees. You'll see some of the projects that there's some exciting news coming down the pike you'll see tonight. A lot of hope. If you want to get started, well, it's fine with me. I'm just trying to, I was hoping that some more people, I don't know where Pritchard's at. He said he was going to.
His
Rod
wife,
is, Drew is here.
his wife's
His
on.
better half is here.
I didn't see her. She was hiding. Hi, Drew. Okay, the family is well represented now, so.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, all right, any more questions, guys? You have some true, good, experienced beekeepers here tonight. So don't feel intimidated. No dumb questions, like I said before. So ask away, not a problem.
No, you're welcome to start anytime, Dwight. Look
Okay,
forward to it.
let me call up my program.
If that's
Here it
me, I'm not here.
Joe's gonna smile in his first slide. Joe Laxhaw knows how to make good queen cells. What we're going to talk about tonight is our 48-hour queen cells to start with, and then we're going to gradually get into virgin queens, unmated queens, and how to transport all of them, and how to introduce them. So the reason we're doing this, if you see the upper left, you see those 48-hour queen cells. That's what a 48-hour queen cell should look like. The queen cell, the JZBZ queen
We
cell.
don't see it. We don't see your slides.
Hey, Dwight. Yeah, you're not sharing your screen yet.
Oh, sorry about that. Hold on. I forgot to share. I do not see a share. Hold on a minute. Let me kill this. Let's start over again. Let me share my screen.
Doug, do you need to do anything to allow him to share?
Yeah, I think so, because my host disabled participant screen sharing. I need to have somebody allow me to share my screen.
Try it now, Dwight.
Okay.
All participants are now able to share their screen.
There we go. Got it. Can everybody see it? Yeah, I know you can.
Now I can.
Yes,
Okay.
we see the PowerPoint just like you do. Yep.
Okay.
Now it's in presentation mode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. 48-hour queen cells upper left. Those are what I mean by that is 48 hours after they have been grafted. Those are what they should look like. if they have good nutrition and good population of young, healthy nurse bees. You can see one of the girls over here, she's feeding, looks like she's feeding one of the cells. These guys over here are also. And what we're doing, we're in a fight against this guy over here. That's sometimes you're at the right place at the right time to have a mite, have a mite that's chewing on the body fat of a worker. That happened to us last fall up in Logan County. In fact, I've got a video of it. And that's what we're fighting are the mites. And down here in the lower left is another another mature queen cell. That's what they should look like. And they're capped. There should be full, cell cup should be full of royal jelly. This is the queen that came out of this bar of cells. And my opinion, I'd like to see now this queen has been laying for a few weeks. I like to have the wings at this point on her abdomen.
Want me to find out?
Because typically she's a good layer. That queen went through 3 summers and she was superseded at the beginning of the 4th summer. And she had a sister that we named Hope's sister. And they both went through 3 summers of great egg laying, produced great amount of bees and brood. In fact, Dr. Greg Hunt and his sidekick Crispin came over from Purdue to visit Hope and Hope's sister. And I got a picture of them leaning against the hives. And then this is 3 of Joe's queen cells. This is what you should have. If you don't have that, you got problems. Okay, 2 sides of a queen. If she lays fertilized eggs, naturally she's going to produce a larvae that's fertilized, and most of them are going to be raised as workers. Or they can, if the workers decide to produce some queen cells, they can select a fertilized larvae and produce queen cells, typically swarm cells, or maybe emergency cells or supersedure cells. On the other hand, if the queen sees that the cell that she's going to lay an egg in is the size of a drone cell, and she uses her front legs as a caliper to determine whether it's a worker cell or a drone cell, she'll lay an unfertilized egg. Now that drone, if she has a good background, reflects the queen's background. And the thing of it is, he passes her genetics to a new generation if the drone mates with the queen at some point in time. And that's what he wants to do. Now here's the reason why Zell and I and a bunch of us are involved with this is our philosophy and our strategy is to get a lot of good genetics that we captured in areas of feral colonies that have high chewing behaviors, a lot of phenotypes that altogether their mite loads are very low and their chewing behavior is extremely high. So what we want to do is get a lot of queens out there that when they lay a drone egg, an unfertilized egg, and we'd like to have them lay at least 3,000 to 4,000 drones in a given colony. And you guys, wherever you have your colonies, you get our queens theoretically in a perfect world, and your queens start producing a lot of drones so that when you have either you're in an adjoining bee yard, because the drones are going to fly off, they're not going to mate with the queens that you produce. They're going to fly off because that's nature's way of, we don't want a queen mating with their brothers. So theoretically, what we're trying to do is saturate a given area, a given township, a given clubs area with good drones. That's really our strategy. Yes, you'll get the benefit of a good queen, her good genetics with low mite counts, and you may not have to treat so much. and be able to produce the honey that you want or pollinate your garden or whatever you want to do. What we like to do is have the queens mate with a minimum of 15. Be nice to have her mate with about 30 drones. So that means she has 15 to 30 subfamilies of workers. It's a diversity within the colony. We need a lot of diversity within the subfamilies to have the healthy colony. Like somebody had said they had pulled out some dead bees. Well, right now, on a warm day, tomorrow, some of you guys at the time, go out and watch the entrances of your colonies. And if it's warm enough, and I think it's going to be sunny tomorrow, you may see some what we call the undertaker bees. Bring the dead bees out and maybe flying off with them, or at least getting them out on the landing porch of your hives. That's only one of many, many tasks that the workers go through in their lifetime before they die. The summer bees die in about age 42, 45 days. Now, what's Dwight about? I'm president of West COBA. I'm also a director on the Ohio State Beekeepers Association, the OSBA. My region is top of Ohio, meaning that I have the counties around the Logan County area. The highest point in Ohio is at 1,535 feet, just north of Bell Fountain. And I have some bees around that area. I helped found the Heartland Honeybee Breeders Cooperative out at Purdue. And Zell and I have started a new organization called the Ohio Queen Bee Improvement Enterprise. We have a swarm trapping team, and we're going to have a queen production network working with beekeepers and clubs. It's something, it kind of mimics a little bit about the old Ohio Queen Initiative back in 2012 that Joe and I were involved in for a while.
Go to this.
I'm also a member of the OSBA Education Committee, along with Rod and Barb and Zell. And I was asked by the USDA if I would do the Ohio Monthly Honey Report. So I have a team of people feeding me information along with Barb. Barb does her report and we do our report and send them into the USDA. I have bees at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We'll talk a little bit about that. I've been working with Honda of America between East Liberty and Marysville, and we'll talk about that. And I'm working with Dr. Brock Harper out at Purdue. He replaced Dr. Greg Hunt when Greg retired about 2 years ago. And the outcome of those projects between Wright-Pat and Honda is starting probably in 2022, we want to provide the FFA and 4-H scholarships that OSBA has with nukes, good nukes. 2 nukes for each one of the scholarship recipients. And then altogether, I'm responsible for about 100 colonies of Faro-sourced Ohio bee stock. Now, I'm 80 years old. I can't lift much more, so I'm smart enough. I have kids or men that I'm mentoring, and they're getting an education in beekeeping, and I'm getting somebody that can do most of my lifting for me. I'm also a member of the Ohio Pollinator Habitat Initiative. I do their Facebook page for them, and we've got over 7,500 followers. The OPI guys are ODNR and ODOT and Fish and Water and Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever. ODA's involved with us. And we're focused on monarch butterflies to begin with, but now we're into the honeybees and the native bees, bumblebees, all types of pollinators. We do a lot of work with monarch butterflies. So that's what I do for a living.
Dwight.
Yes.
Bear with me a second. I want to ask everybody again, if you do not have your microphone muted, please mute it. We're getting some feedback that's not good for the presentation. Appreciate your cooperation. Go ahead, Dwight.
Okay. So that's what I do. The reason I'm able to do this, my wife, Josie, passed away with Alzheimer's in 2009. And she and I both like beekeeping. And she told me before she died, she wanted me to get back into beekeeping. So here I am. And when I started, I wandered over to COBA, and that's where I met Dr. Lakshaw and Dana and John George and Wamplers and Barb. List is long. So that's what I do. Love it. Okay, Varroa was found in Germany in 1976 by Dr. Friedrich Rutner over in Germany and also in Austria. They come up out of Asia. And 11 years later, he found mites that had been chewed. That same year, Varroa came into Ohio. And in 92, thank goodness he did it, he published a paper and it had photos of the chewed mites that they had found on the bees. And those photos mimic exactly what we see on the mice that have their legs chewed, exactly the same. And then Greg in 99, well, Greg, yeah, 99, Dr. Greg Hunt from Purdue found some chewing behavior on a colony south of Cleveland in his mother's backyard. Now, so that was 1999. So from 87 to 99, and that's 12 years. So it's about the same as like that, what happened over in Europe. In 10, 11, 12 years, bees start a survivor stock, feral, if you want to call it feral, I don't know, he's kind of survivor stock back then, had started to chew the legs. And then my buddy, Dr. Price Smith, saw a bee chase a mite down and chew it. And this is in 2011. This is before smartphones. So I had an HD camera that I loaned, video camera, and he captured about 15 different videos of mice being chewed by his bees, and they were feral bees. He lives in an area that's isolated, and he wasn't trapping. He was finding hanging swarms. So we had chewing behavior on video. And then in 2012, I crossed paths with Dr. Tom Seeley down in West Virginia. And after listening to him talk, I put out a swarm trap over at Cedar Bog, north of Springfield. And I was spastic enough that I caught a swarm. And then in 2015, I was working with Penn State on a SARE grant with a friend of mine over in Pennsylvania, and we were using control queens from California and against the Indiana leg chewers stock and some other stock. And just on a lark, I decided to see what was going on with my survivor stock that I had here in Miami County. Lo and behold, they were chewing at about 30%. Now, 2019, using digital microscopes, about that time, the girls were starting to get pretty creative on how they were chewing the mites. And you'll see some funny pictures here in a few minutes. They're chewing at about 90% in 2019. And in 2020, they're up over 95%. So, and I'll show you how we do that protocol so we can prove that we are working with feral stock. So mite butting is only one of the phenotypes, and in other words, one of the behaviors that the mites have to control the ferals at a safe, the mites at a safe level. And you'll see some data here that's going to get you interested. So our mission statement for the Ohio Queen Bee Improvement Enterprise is, you can read it there. Just what we're doing is exchanging information and genetics between the swarm trappers, the queen producers, and the beekeepers within Ohio. That's what Zell and I come up with. And then Dr. Megan McBrath, who I've crossed paths with several times out at Purdue, she wrote 2 articles in ABJ in 2020. August one was Help, I Need a Queen. Good article. And then in September, she wrote an article about working with queen cells. It's an excellent article. So, and I have the PDF files. I can give somebody in your group a PDF file and you could pass it around. They're both good reads. And by the way, I got the permission from the editor of ABJ to do that. Tom Seeley, in his book, one of his last books, mentions about natural selection, because feral bees, it's all about natural selection, and not just the animals, but also plants. And he says typically what the researchers have found, it takes about 10 years for a plant or some animals, or in our case, bees, be able to come up with a solution to start attacking the problem they got themselves into. And that's what we see over in Europe with the bees and over here in the States. And then one of the neat things is Puerto Rico was overwhelmed with Africanized bees. A lot of them escaped, and they were feral. Come to find out, 2 or 3 years ago, or at least it was a few years ago, some of the researchers at the University of Puerto Rico discovered that they were chewing. They were chewing, but they also did not have the temperament that the original bees had. They're gentle. No, we don't want them here in the States, but for over in Puerto Rico, they're happy with gentle bees and they're chewing. So what we're after basically is the drones, and oh, by the way, maybe some queens. The drones is what we need out there to start mating with all types of queens where we have our bees. So Dr. Robert Page, by the way, when Dr. Rothenbuehler retired, Dr. Page came in for a few years, and he picked up where Rothenbuehler had left. In his book, The Spirit of the Hive, says that genetic variation is the grist of the mill of natural selection. That's a good book to read, by the way. He just published another book a few months ago. And what I'm finding, the last books that some of these PhDs have written, they're easier to read for the average experienced beekeeper. They don't go into detail and get into the world of nitty gritty of breeding and things like that. But they're good reads for people who are interested in what we have going on with natural selection. These two guys got a hold of 201 research papers around the world. And this is basically what they come up with. And this is what we have our bees doing here with our natural selection. They have our hygienic, the VSH, grooming, suppressed reproduction. That's one's kind of a mystery as far as I'm concerned. Cell size and virus. And we have virus resistant. The USDA has helped us with that. And Dr. Jay Evans's lab down in Maryland did some testing for us. And I'll show you, no, I don't have that report tonight. The swarms that we catch have almost no viruses. And then of course you have the hygienic, the frozen pupa and the removal of the mite infested pupa. And then the mite fall and the percentage of damaged mites. All that together is when we see different aspects, some of it we can't test for a lot that we are, but you'll see here in a minute where we're going to go with all this. So anyway, I'm just trying to give you some proof of what we have going on. Now, I work with Dr. Harper out at Purdue University. He replaced Greg a couple years ago. Okay, let's back up on VSH, Varroa sensitive hygiene. When a pupa is sealed, what we call sealed brood, while she's pupating, if there is a mother mite has gone in there and she starts eating her and starts biting her, and the pupa gets distressed, and they produce a pheromone that if you have bees that are VSH inclined, they can smell that pheromone. They'll uncap that pupa and haul it out, and if it's sick, they'll eat it, but maybe they'll kill the mite if they're quick enough. I've seen videos of sometimes the mites get away from them, but at least they're eliminating some of the daughters that the mother mite was trying to raise inside that cell. So there's a lot of work done by the USDA down in Louisiana over the years for VSH, and I see VSH in our colonies. So that's what VSH is all about. So anyway, Brock wrote a research paper that shows a lot of the immune system aspect of the immune systems of feral bees. And you're going to see some other work here, how I'm working with Brock at Purdue. So, okay, here it is. I'm working with Purdue, or Honda, like I said, and this is we just got through our second full year of swarm trapping up there. Number one colony there was this colony that I caught the year before. I set out 3 swarm traps up there on their property in 2019, and I caught 2 swarms. When Honda came into North America, they purchased 10,000 acres in 1977. So it's been isolated. There's a little bit of farming done, but most of it is rough land and a lot of wood lots that have a lot of older trees, well over 100 years old. And so we thought we would try to see what would happen. Well, I got 2 swarms with 3 traps, so we thought that was pretty good. So last year, I did a bee school for them in 10th of March last year, right before the door slam shut on what we were dealing with COVID. And during a work day, I had 24 people show up, engineers and production guys, and we had an all-day, one-day school. From that, last year we put out 10 swarm traps, and we caught 8 swarms. And long story short, this year we're going to the R&D plant. It's between the 2 assembly plants. Assembly plants are in East Liberty and Marysville. In the middle, in the north side of the test oval, is the R&D plant where they do a lot of research on materials and do experiments on cars, things like that. Anyway, this year we're going to set out 15 swarm traps, and then the Marysville assembly plant is getting ready to buy equipment from my buddy up in Ashland County, and they're going to put out 10 swarm traps. So we're going to have 25 swarm traps spread out over those 10,000 acres. And 2019, the Ohio Pollinator Habitat had a meeting over in Columbus, and I got Dr. Reed Johnson and Brock Harper both to speak at that meeting. And the 3 guys from Honda were there, who was on the team. Long story short, I had everybody shake hands and sit down and talk a little bit. Out of that meeting, one of Reed's kids, Harper, she's working on her PhD, doing some work with pollen up at Honda, and some work with some monarch butterfly way stations also and they have a lot of different flowers up there, long story short. Plus they planted 7 acres of pollinator flowers last year. Anyway, on the side of Purdue, I got a meeting with Honda and Purdue a week ago yesterday. Long story short, out of that, Brock is going to do a lot of research up at Honda on their feral stock and on drone DCAs and all that. Everybody's excited about that. He sees what I'm doing with feral stock, and he's getting some of my feral stock too. So we're going to do a lot of playing around with DNA and different aspects. Some of the things I have no idea what he's going to do. He's going to write several research papers on it, so I can't say too much about it. That's exciting to have Purdue work with people like Honda. Honda is going to have a press release after the pandemic is over. When the guys did the presentation to top management of Honda, they were excited about it. They said, on the press release, but they said, let's wait until the pandemic is over, probably in the summer, so we don't compete with everything that's going on with that, so that when we tell the world what we're doing, people will hear it. Long story short, what their goal is, what Honda's goal is, we're going to overwinter nukes. And on OSBA does scholarships for 4-Hers and FFA kids. We did 10 this year, 5 for 4-H and 5 for FFA kids. What our plan is to give those recipients 2 nukes from Honda that have good chewing behavior, low mite counts for the kids to use for their projects. That's the long-term goal. That's exciting. Besides that, we'll have access to the resources that we find. And he's got, not only is he working with Honda, he's working with me on some of the genetic areas, gene pools in Western Ohio. We're out in the wilderness where there's no commercial bees, and they're all chewing. So we have about 450 colonies now. They're derivatives of those feral stock. And we did a test on 100 of them last fall. And we hadn't tested them. We hadn't given any treatments for a year. And they only had about for one mite, 1% mite, 1 mite per 300 bees. We thought that was pretty good. That was exciting for us and for Brock. So that's the Honda story. At Wright Pat, I've got bees on both ends of the flight line. And I have 12 colonies there, and they're all high chewing behavior. And Brock wants to work with us on. I have a grad student that Wright Pat has hired from. She has a master's from UD, and she did her master's work at Hoffman Prairie, and right beside where the Wright brothers did their experiments in the early 1900s. And the idea was to bring bees in to pollinate the prairie better, so that the guys could produce harvest seed from it for some of the parks systems in Montgomery County. And it has been very successful. Not only did we pollinate the Hoffman Prairie, we had several hundred acres that has wing stem and the boneset family and ironweed and a lot of other pollinator native flowers. And over the last 3 years, the population of those flowers, the plants, has just dramatically increased. And now, because that happened, this past summer, when the monarchs were around, we had lots of monarchs flying around at any given day. Same with all the other different butterflies and lots of hundreds of bumblebees. It's exciting to see what happened. This project has been going on since 2015. Because of all the work, we are a Bee City USA at Wright Pat, and Honda's goal is to be a Bee City by the end of 2021. So that's the goal for both those organizations. So that's just a little bit of what's going on in that area. So what we're going to go is from you see those yucky mites on the pupa there, over to this. On the right hand side, there's a photograph of one mite. Sal and I did an alcohol wash on some colonies this past late summer, overwintered colonies, hadn't been treated, one mite for 300 bees. High chewing behavior. And we had another colony that had 4 mites for 300 bees. Those 2 colonies are up on the farm of the Ohio Department of Agriculture. She wanted some feral bees, so I have 2 colonies up there that that I'm going to be taking care of for her and Sam. That's another nice story, and they're right kind of close to Honda. So a lot of people are starting to understand what's going on with the ferals. Okay, I cut this mite on my screen bottom board behind my house. I have a scale hive, and this colony, and I let it requeen itself. I run the risk. I don't want to requeen it myself because we have feral stock here. So every couple of years, I hold my breath when they replace their queen. This last queen, her girls are doing very well. Now I got this mite on the screen bottom board about a year ago at this time. And I had cleaned the board off December the 15th and went back and got it retrieved about January the 15th. It had about 10 mites on it, but I fell in love with this mite here. You can see the tip of this leg's been clipped. This leg here has been chewed off about halfway. And what they're doing now, the girls are going in and ripping out the intestines of the stomach and eating the intestines. As Barb Letcher says, they're getting their own protein back.
Why?
And then they're starting to chew a lot of the tissue on the base of the legs and up against the stomach. And they go through the rectum is right here. And what they do to start with, they get in this around the hole where the feces come out and rip that open, rip out the rectum and go in this way. And sometimes they go along the side. Sometimes they go in this way too. Yes, someone saying something?
Yes. I'm not seeing anything on my screen. I don't know if I'm alone on that or not.
Is everybody seeing a screen?
Yeah, I'm seeing the image. This is Doug.
We can see it. We can see it.
This is when I do it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, you might want to go back and come back in, Will.
Okay, thanks, Dwight.
Sure. So, and we're seeing more and more this year. You know, a lot of people say, oh, it's ants. Well, we don't have ants in the wintertime. It's not ants. This is one of the things that Brock is going to be working on. He's got he has undergrads, grad students, and his one girl is working on her master's, Maddie, and then she's gonna get her PhD there, and she's been doing a lot of DNA work. And all of his students, one thing in common, they all are beekeepers to begin with. He's got some undergrads that have been out of beekeeper families for years. And Brock told me last year he's embarrassed because some of the undergrads can graft better than he can. He got some smart kids over there at Purdue now. So anyway, that's, this is good news for the bees. And I see this, this is the best case I've seen, but I see occasionally, the intestines are ripped out most of the time. And once in a while, they haven't ate all the intestines by the time the mite drops on the screen bottom board through the number 8 hardware cloth. Does everybody know what a screen bottom board is? Do you guys use screen bottom boards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What it is, it's not a solid bottom board. It's got a screen on it, number 8 hardware cloth on the top, and underneath it there's a slide so that we can catch the mites on the slide of the underneath the screen. That way the bees can, because if the bees can get at the debris on those floors, they are spick and span. That's one of the things that we've noticed lately, that in the last 3 or 4 years, they're getting more and more hygienic. Some of our 5-frame nukes we do, they don't have screen bottom boards on them. When you take the take the bottom board off, you could eat off of them. That's how clean they are. So 48-hour queen cell history. And Joe Lackshaw is part of this. 2008, Larry went over to visit his buddy, John Kevis, over in France. By the way, John got his BS degree at OSU. And Larry wrote about it in 2009. 2010, I went up to Larry's for a queen rearing class. Dana had taught me how to graft and produce queens. And I decided I was going to go up and go through Larry's 3-day class on queen rearing. So I got a different perspective. I did. We had 48-hour queen cells. And I brought, I think it was 23 of them, wrapped in a towel, damp towel, down to Dana Stallman's to put them in one of his finishers behind his house. And Larry said, Dwight, you don't have to do that. But I thought I just, no towel. But I was traveling in a truck and I thought I needed something to kind of keep the bar from bouncing around because I didn't want the larvae to get goofed up. And I have a picture of Dana looking at, I think 17 or 18 of them were drawn, the cells were drawn out. So we proved that we could do that. That was the first time, as far as I know, that anybody had moved cells that way. Then Joe did some work in 2011. He wrote an article in Bee Culture magazine. And Joe had given some 48-hour queen cells to Barry Conrad. And Barry had got them in a cell finisher. And then he sent some in the mail up to Joe, what's the guy's name up north?
It's Roy Hendrickson.
Yes, Roy,
Yeah.
Roy Henderson, yes. And what Joe expected to happen did, sending them however he did it, whether it was a mail or UPS or whatever. A lot of the larvae had bounced out. In 2012, I transported 48-hour queen cells up to Megan Milbreath up in Michigan in a traveling nuke system that you'll see here in a minute, 48 hours. And she when she wrote her article in September, she had the photo of the one I took of the 40. You'll see it here in a minute, and it worked out well for her. She put them in a finisher, finished them out, and it did well. And then I got busy and we didn't do too much for 48-hour queen cells for a few years. In 2018, I decided to get back into the project again, and we started playing around with it. And I've got a buddy up in Mercer County that produces a lot of nukes, and he does everything in 48-hour queen cells right straight into a nuke, and it works well for him. And then 2020, we got into big time into the natural selection of the feral bee swarms. And when Megan wrote her article in 2020, which I have a PDF file of that I can give you guys, then Zell and I started in this year, we started the Ohio Queen Bee Improvement Enterprise. Basic queen biology. It's an egg for 3 days. It's an egg for 3 days. It hatches into a larvae. By the way, the only time anything in bees hatch is when the egg hatches into a larvae. When I hear people talking about, well, a queen hatches or a drone hatches or a worker hatches, I winch, because they emerge, they don't hatch. Into the larvae from day 4 to day 8. The cell's kept at about 5.5 days after we graft, or about day 9, the cell's capped. And then day 16, the queen emerges. Then about 5 to 7 days, she has the urge to go and mate. She flies out, flies away from the bee yard quite a distance to get away from her brothers. And so she doesn't mate with, and no inbreeding. And then a few days after that, she starts to lay eggs. And then from the day the egg is laid until the brood starts to emerge is about 49 to 50 days. So that's kind of basic. It varies a little bit, but basically that's where we're at. So little bit of luck. So some of you guys have never seen grafting before. I thought I'd show a couple of slides of grafting so you can see the process. There's a larva there that's probably close to 24 hours old. This one down here is not quite that old. You see over here, there's a larvae there that's, I like that age right there. This is a Chinese grafting tool. We have German grafting tools, and some people use toothpicks and baling wire and copper wire. They make their own, whatever. It's all over the map. Busy slide. What I like, in my opinion, these are unmated queens. When a queen emerges from her cell, I like to see the wings about that place on her abdomen. Both these queens are virgins. And this is pictures taken several years ago up in Bell Fountain area. And this is our cell starter. These are 48-hour queen cells. That's a queen cell after 24 hours of grafting. That's what it should look like. Then there's the 48. And then you can see the inside. You can see it's loaded with workers. And you can look back here. I don't know whether you can see it or not. There's a California mini cage there with a queen in it. So we kind of have a flange there that we can put patties in, and if we want to store a few queens, we can, and it works well. Worked out very well. And there's the picture of Megan holding up the 45 of the 40-hour queen cells. She calls them 72-hour queen cells. I call them 48-hour queen cells. If you look at her face, she's laughing. We were watching this worker here. This girl, she's oblivious. I took that frame out of the traveling nuke, and she could have cared less. She was still munching away on that protein. Because you can see the girls were working on those 48-hour queen cells. And that's a AutoCAD drawing of our traveling nuke that I designed in 2013 for our workout at Purdue. And those are for you guys that are relatively new. I just want to show you, those are queen excluders. Metal, and the one on the left are the plastic. I like the plastic. I use the plastic most of the time because I have 8-frame and 10-frame equipment along 5-frame, and I just grab a plastic because it works in all three with one type of excluder. The reason I'm going to just keep that in your mind. When we make traveling nukes up, or even a regular nuke, I always like to have open cell honey, lots of protein, pollen, and then in some cases, between those 2 frames of cap brood, there's about a good 10,000. So it's almost 3 pounds of bees there. And that makes a good nuke, a strong nuke, because this is what I like to see on a nuke, whether it's a traveling nuke or a regular nuke. Now, when we do queen rearing classes, we like to have people bring nukes of some sort with them so that when we graft, they can use their own cell starter the first couple of days. And the problem we see is some of them have queens in them, and most of them aren't strong enough. So what we're starting to tell people is, and a lot of people have a hard time finding queens. Well, we've all missed queens occasionally, and we all understand. Those of us who've done this long enough, sometimes it's difficult to find a goofy queen. So Gilbert Doolittle had a very easy way of doing all this. So what you do, you pick up your frames of bees that you want to use, put them in a super, and put another super on, and put drawing comb or whatever back in to replace the combs you brought out, and put another super on top as a funnel. Shake all the bees off. Look for a queen, just so you don't shake the queen. But if you can't find her, you shake all the bees. So all the bees are off those frames. And you smoke all the bees down into the hive. Take the box off, put the queen excluder on, put the box back on, put the frames on it. Now, in my case, I like to have more than 5 frames for a 5-frame nuke. I like to have 7 or 8 frames, maybe 10 frames, depending on the type of equipment I'm using. So that I had at the end, when in about 6 hours, you go back and those frames will be loaded with the right age of bees for the frame that they're on. Bees are smart. And then you can choose and pick and make your nukes. It's easy to do. You don't worry about looking for a queen. It's fast to do. You can make a lot of nukes in a day's time by using queen excluders and shaking your bees, and you go back the next day if you want to and make a lot of nukes, knowing that your queens are not there. They're down below where they should be. And that's a traveling nuke in person, and it is a brand new one. This one, because we wanted screens on the top and screens on the bottom, because sometimes we move bees when it's warm. Really, sometimes it's hot. It's above 90 degrees, and we want to make sure those bees are comfortable. We feed them, we give them water, anything we need to keep them comfortable and healthy, and they don't get overheated. So here's one of the nukes that I think was Judge Dan O'Hanlon was working on at the time over at Purdue. And you can see what it looked like with bees. And here's, I like to use shims on top of my nukes, and I store all queens up there. Those are all inseminated queens, my work out of Purdue. Look at the girls, they're on those queens. That's what we like to see. They're feeding them. Of course, I always have protein patties there, and we feed them either fondant or sugar syrup so that they're healthy, comfortable, and well taken care of when we move them from point A to point B. Point A to point B might be 6-hour drive, and it's worked out very well. Back to mature queen cells. This is Hope. This is the, you saw that queen earlier. I produced her in 2013, and her and her sister's name was Hope's sister. Reason I named them Hope, because in 2013, we needed a lot of hope. And those of us who were working out of Purdue, we needed something to tell people that we had hope. And that was Hope. She lived for 3 summers before she was replaced. And she was from this bar of queen cells. So that's what we want to do. Now, this bar of queen cells is skimpy, not well fed, and not large queen cells. You remember what Joe's queen cells looked like. That's what queen cells should look like. Okay, now what I did, because we're going to go through 3 different renditions here. A 40-hour queen cell, and we're going to talk about virgin queens, and we're going to talk about queen cells. So I took one of these calendar wheels, took a picture of it. So here's 48. We graphed on day 3 or day 4 after the larvae hatches. And on day 6, now it's a 40-hour queen cell, and we can move them for 10 hours without bees, or put them in a traveling nuke, and you can take them for a ride. I wouldn't want to take them more for 7 or 8, 10 hours, but kind of common sense. And then once we get them there, what we're going to do is that's what I did with Megan. That was her article in the September issue. Then in Megan's case, as soon as I got them up there, and I called her, she knew I was coming. She had a finisher colony ready. And this is basically with the way we do our finishing. This is an 8-frame finishing colony. Open honey on both sides, complete size, emerging brood, pollen. And then we have a young larvae here before we put the frame in, or the 40-hour queen cell frame in. Young larvae, emerging brood, open honey. About an hour before we put the frame of cells in, we pull this frame out and put it in another colony. and you brush the bees off of it because you want as many young nurse bees as you possibly can. And by the time you put your frame of 40-hour queen cells in there, you've got a lot of young nurse bees filling up that hole. So you slowly just push that frame, just let it settle down so the bees get out of the way, you don't kill any of them. Now you have young larvae on those 40-hour queen cells, like that. And that's what you want. This guy up here is the queen cells are already mature. That was the frame from Hope and Hope's sister when I took that picture. It's always about young, healthy nurse bees, lots of them, and lots of nutrition. And then, of course, there's Joe's queen cells. Now let's go back to virgin queens. At day 5.5, they cap, ballpark, they cap the cell. And right before they cap it, they plug it full of, they add a lot of royal jelly if it's healthy and if it's done right, and as far as nutrition and population and everything else. So at day 9, because at day 10, 11, and 12, you will not touch any of those queen cells because that's when their wings and legs are sensitive. And if you bounce those queens around, you're going to destroy queens. So we're going to move on now here. So what we do, we take the queen cells and put them in California mini cages and put them in. And now before we put them in the cell, we ream out the hole up here. I think it's 9/16 if I remember right, so that we can fit the queen cell and the JZBZ cup in them. And before we do that, though, we put a little bit of queen candy at the bottom with about 3 drops of honey. And by the way, at the end of this presentation, I have a recipe of how to make queen candy that works very well. We've made it for many, many years at Purdue and our own work. It works out great. And you may take a picture of it and you can use it. Either, I don't know whether it's either Joe or Joe Lakshaw or Larry Connor gave me that recipe. It works great. Fantastic recipe. Anyway, so you have all these girls here in cells. You put them in there and they have a pheromone. They're producing a pheromone. And they'll be covered, kept warm until they start to emerge. Now here's the thing that you got to do. You know when they're going to start to emerge. You're going to go out there every 8 hours and see the queens that have emerged, pull that queen cage out, collapse the cell so that the queen can't turn around and go back up and try to eat some of her royal jelly. Because what happens, you go up there and they get up there and they get stuck. Their wings will get stuck. So I carry an X-Acto knife and I have released a lot of queens from dying. So, but you got to do it every 8 hours until all the queens have emerged. I like doing it this way because I like to have unmated queens that we can inspect. So when we put them on in our mating nukes, we know that they're fairly healthy. You know, their bodies aren't bent. You don't see any imperfection. They're nice looking queens as a just emerged queen. They're not too small. On and on and on. So that when we get to this point, I put that cage in there. That this newt had been queenless for 48 hours. So before I put the cage on, I check all the frames and kill all of the queen cells. They're not going to be mature like this, but they're going to be in stages like this. You got to find all those queen cells and kill them. And this is also tells me, but there's no queen in there. If you have emergency queen cells, there's no queen there. So you wipe them all out. And you do that. In this particular case, after 48 hours, I set that cage down there. I've got a video of it. Within 10 seconds, I started drawing, the queen, started drawing the workers from here. And pretty soon they came from around 12 inches away, all hurrying around because they smelled the pheromone of this queen. Now, we don't know whether they like her or whether they want to kill her. They haven't, they don't have the relationship yet. It's a brand new queen in a strange environment. So she's left in there for a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. I go back about 3 days. You check for queen cells the first time before you just lay the queen cage down. You don't uncover the queen candy. 3 to 5 days later, when I have some time, I like 5 days later personally, go back, let's see what's happening, and pick up the cage and run your index finger across the screen and see if the bees will move. If they move, you know that they probably like the queen. But before I uncover the candy, I check for queen cells again. Then I go ahead and take the tape off, layer it back down. Now, since she's laying on top of the top of the frames, it's easy for me to go back in a couple, 2 or 3 days when I have time to see if the queen's released. Typically, they're released. If they are, I take the queen cage out. I don't disturb anything. I close it back up. And if it's a mated queen, I wait 7 days. If it's been a virgin queen, I wait maybe as long as 10, 12 days before I go back and see if the queen is laying. And I have had runs, and this isn't bragging, it's been a lot of work, a lot of trial and error. In one case, we had a run of about 5 weeks. It was good weather. We had good drones, and they were feral drones, we found out later, where we were mating. We had about a 95% take on queens returning and laying on about 40 different mating nukes. We were happy. You can do the same. You can do this the same way with inseminated queens, but personally, the way we do it in inseminated queens, I allow mine to be in there for around 7 or 8 days, because inseminated queens are not the same as mated queens or virgin queens. And mated queens, I leave them in for at least 5 days, sometimes longer. If I'm busy, it doesn't matter to me. I know they're going to be taken care of, but you got to go back and kill those last queen cells before you release her. That is if you don't, you're going to have a dead queen. So once again, you're going to have queen cells like something like that. Now you got to look, you got to look at all the frames, because you don't know where an egg is laid, even on a honey frame. It could be on a corner someplace. We've found queen cells anywhere on those frames. So you got to make sure all those queen cells are killed. So now we get into the mature queen cells. At day 13, now it's safe to handle sealed mature queen cells. You got to keep them warm. You don't want to bounce them around. They'll take a little bit of abuse, but you don't want to do that. You want to be very gentle with them. Now, battery box, foam, Rubbermaid. Underneath, I take a pound honey jar and fill it up with hot water. Works. And then you put them in these holes. And here's how this is. And I always use. I don't really do this anymore. But when I use the queen cell protectors, because if you don't, sometimes they'll chew the neck of the queen cell. I use those, and this is what Megan, she has this in her article. Anything to have a hole there to put the queen cells in. I like the hair curler, the one she drilled the hole out and put the queen cell cup there. So then it had some honey or some queen candy there, need be. Or use an egg incubator, store them in there. You can see them in there in that egg incubator. different ways of transporting mature queen cells. And then you put them in, that's a queen castle, 3 frame nukes, and put the queen cell there. That works fine. I like to do it that way rather than stick them in the side because, and if you got to have lots of bees so that they're taken care of temperature wise and make sure that they're kept warm before they emerge. I like them that way because after I put them in, I know within three or 4 days they should emerge. I go back and see because occasionally a queen, there's something wrong with the queen. She won't emerge. So you got to have some other queen cells there that if a queen has not emerged, odds are she's dead. So you got to put another queen cell then before the bees get a little bit antsy about not having a mother or queen to work with. So again, I just show you frames of brood and pollen and honey to make either a traveling nuke. There's a nice frame of pollen. That pollen is, I think that was fall pollen. I think that was goldenrod and wing stem pollen. Now, something that we have run across over the last couple of years, Acorn in California is making plastic foundation triple waxed. Not plain, not single, not double, but triple waxed black plastic foundation. And what we discovered, the bees just love drawing this out. And we have put both plastic and wax foundation in the same strong colony. They always go for the black plastic first. And another reason why we like black plastic, because later on, you may be grafting and it's nice to have a black background so you can see a white larvae to graft and to get the larvae. So once again, just an FYI, kind of going back and doing another rendition of it. This is very important to go through this process so that you have a queen that you paid some money for it, whether it's an unmated queen or a mated queen or whatever. You want to make sure she arrives, she gets out, starts laying, and the bees love her. Any questions on this aspect of queen introduction? It's very important. This is kind of a flow chart. Whether some people take those 40-hour queen cells and put them right in nukes. That's another process that I didn't have the time to talk about tonight. I know a kid up north of me that's the only way he does his, and he doesn't use a finisher. He's very successful at it. He's got a good process. It works well. Most people do the finisher and go it that way. And there's some of the queens that we get out of our, some of them are that one there was inseminated. You can see the tagger tails. I don't have a black queen. We have black queens. We have red queens, queens of all colors. I don't care. They're all feral. From feral stock, we'll put it that way. Then everyone always talks about the queens, all about the queen. Well, Jay Evans from Dr. Jay Evans from Beltsville writes what he calls essays in Bee Culture magazine every month now, has been for several years. He just published a book and about his essays up to about 2 years ago. And one of his articles in November 2020 in Bee Culture magazine was about drones, the other 50%. You can have good queens, but if they mate with poor stock, you're not going to be happy. And if you talk to somebody that's kids in 4-H or somebody that's a farmer, either any type of livestock, if they're buying something, they know what they're buying, whether it's semen for their cattle or for anything that they inseminate, or whether they're buying a bull or whatever. They pay a lot of money. And for some reason, beekeepers haven't started to ask questions. When they buy a queen, they ask the queen producer, what are their drones? What type of drones are they mating with? I know some cases that people think they're getting good queens and they're getting queens that were mated with commercial Italian drones. And the queens are dark, and they're wondering why their workers are brown, and why they're not what they thought they were going to get. You gotta ask. Beekeeping is just like animal husbandry. There is no difference. So we're getting some triple wax black foundation from the Amish guy that we deal with. We're getting a triple waxed drone foundation to produce a lot of drones in different areas where we're going to be mating colonies away. You got these colonies at least a mile away from your mating nukes, at least. So, and Sue COBA, bless her heart, a couple of years ago gave me this picture of a worker or a queen being mated with a drone. There's a comment. And then Mark Winston shows the same thing. That drone dies as soon as he's finished because you don't want inbreeding. So he's dead. And then she mates with hopefully more than 15 drones so that she has lots of different subfamilies within her colony. So not only are we concerned about the queen quality, we're concerned about drone quality. We ran into a situation a couple of years ago where we were using semen from a colony, and there were problems with the semen. So, with the sperm. So, you know, you blame the queen all the time. Oh, they have a poor queen. Could have been a good queen, and she mated with drones that had sperm problems. They were inferior, or whatever. So it's like Jay Evans says, it's, you know, it's 50% of the drone and it's 50% of the queen. This is animal husbandry. So basically, going back, you know, we need to have strong, this is 5-frame nuke over at Wright-Patterson on the east end of the flight line. And that queen was a swarm queen from Wright-Pat, and I took her and mated her in another area. And where it had some of our workers now are jet black. There's no stripes. They are pure black workers, and the drones are always black. So you got to have strong colonies like that to work with. I've started using some PVC pipe dry flower feeders in the wintertime when it's warm enough, because we go into an area where we have never done swarm trapping. We don't know what we don't know. So we put the feeders out, and on a warm day, when it's about 50 degrees or above, you go out and see if anybody has found those feeders. And we have found a lot of areas way out in the wilderness that have feral bees, and they have feral stock. We put swarm traps out, we get swarms, and they are high chewing behavior. And that's some of the work we're doing with Purdue. Double screens. Why do I talk about double screen? That's a snell grove that my son makes for me when he has the time. There's a homemade one I made with a hole saw. So it's a double screen, 3/8 inch to the rim. Now, double screen, it's got to be a double screen. That's 3/8 inch plywood, so that the workers can pass pheromone back or food back or pheromone back and forth between the two colonies. Because what we're going to do, we're going to pretend we have a somebody that has had to get packaged bees. I mean, had no choice because it couldn't get any nukes. Okay, so you get a package of bees, and the queen has laid good eggs and a population, and she's grown into a fairly strong colony. So you want to replace her with known good stock. So what you do right off the bat is you put that double screen, take the inner cover off, top cover, inner cover off, put the double screen on, and put a nuke up there with a new queen. And you let her, you go ahead and introduce the queen in the nuke before you put her on top, so she knows she's laying. Put her up on top and let her go. And for a month. Let her grow the nuke. So it's fairly strong, whether it's a 5 frame, 8 frame, or 10 frame, I don't care. So once you like the population of the top nuke above the double screen, you take it off, set it aside, and you put queen excluders between all of the deep supers. You go back 4 days later, where the eggs are is where your queen is. You don't care, you don't have to look for it. If you find eggs in one of the supers, you know the queen's there. Set her aside. Put a newspaper on the brood nest, a little bit of sugar syrup, put your new queen on with her brood, with her nuke. Put the new nuke on the newspaper, put the double screen on, and put the old substandard queen on top of the double screen. You have flipped your queens. And I know a guy that did a SARE grant. His name's Jim Kearns up in Logan County. He's a good friend of mine. He does hundreds of these, thousands of these over the years. Works great. So then 2 weeks later, after you know that the new queen is laying well and everybody's happy, you can remove the old queen. Now, don't kill her. If she's laying well, use her like a brood mare, as I call it. Take her someplace and let her produce a lot of brood for you. And you can take and make nukes from the old queen. Give them new queens. Eventually, you'll kill her sometime because she probably has some mite issues, things like that. But it's a good way of replacing what I call inferior queens, or a queen that you want to replace. And there's an example. That's 8 frame equivalent. Entrance is at the back, very strong. And those are, I haven't pulled the, this is a rim there for a vent hole for the bottom. And this worked. I put 9 of those double nuke systems on, or above the screen. And all 9 of them came through the winter very strong. You know, I had to get them off in the spring because the queens were, because all the warm air is coming up, and that queen just goes crazy laying eggs. So you got to get them off and put them someplace and get them out of there. Now, Mike Palmer, he's a friend of mine. We crossed paths a lot over the years when he comes down into Ohio or HAS or wherever. And he designed this, he calls the double nuke system, with a 10 frame super with a 3/4 inch wood stock here so that the queens can't cross over. Now, in our case, this is 10 frames. So we have a lot, I had a lot of 5 frame nukes. So we put a cantilever there of 3/4 inch stock and put these 5 frame nukes about. So look at this. April 1st, we put a 5 frame nuke there. Now the weather was nice during this time, but on May 21st, I took this picture. We had brood here, now 4 queens separated all the way up. So we had 4 frames down here. So 3 of the 4 had brood. This outside frame is always honey. You have typically, maybe the second frame may have honey, but you have a lot of brood here, a lot of brood here. Typically 1 or 2 frames of brood here, then honey up here. Look at all that brood. You could make nukes from some more nukes. You get some more queens, make more nukes. I've made nukes from nukes from nukes. Mike Palmer, when I crossed paths with him in Goldenrod, he's up in Vermont. He lives about just a few miles south of the Canadian border. We kid Mike. We tell Mike that his bees talk French and doesn't understand English when we get his queens. We all laugh about him. He's a good egg, good guy. So anyway, double nuke systems. Nukes are whatever you want. 5 frame nukes, 8 frame nukes. And you experienced beekeepers can do this very readily. And it's easy to teach. I have a 13-year-old boy that's got the scholarship. And by the end of this year, he's going to have some nukes. Plus, we're putting out swarm traps for the kid also. I'm going to teach him a lot this year. Besides beekeeping, he's going to put out swarm traps, and he's going to have some nukes going into winter. He's going to be a good beekeeper in about 3 years. He's going to be grafting by he's about 15, 16. So here's a candy recipe. So, and it works well. Now, 2 things. If the candy's for yourself, you can use honey. But if you're going to put it in something that you're going to sell to somebody by law, you've got to use either corn syrup or numoline instead of the honey. You follow this process with a microwave, and I have a infrared thermometer, and what I do, I heat it up to 95 degrees, and so that I just keep on mixing in the powdered sugar. Typically a cup of honey and 2 pounds of sugar, and by the time you're done and you get it to the point where at 95 degrees, it'll pull it apart, it'll tear like a piece of paper at 94, 95 degrees. So that's what I like. That way, because this is going into a colony that's going to be 94 degrees. You don't want it to become sticky at 94 degrees so that the queen's wings will get in it and she'll die. And you don't want to get it too hard. If you follow this, this works very well. We have made a lot of it. When we do a queen rearing class out of Purdue, we always try to produce some candies and really do it right there so that people understand, they watch us do it with a microwave in the bee lab. So having that said all that, there's some good reading books. Tom City's one of his last books was The Lives of Bees. This book here is the one we're living right now, working with feral bees and swarm trapping and all that. I have other presentations I do with working with feral bees, and other ones swarm trapping. And I have pictures of the first day that a scout finds a swarm trap. Second day, there's a few more bees. Third day, a few more bees. And by the 6th day, you'll have 200 or 300 bees in that swarm trap. And look out, because here comes a swarm within a few hours. I have all this document. It is neat to watch bees work together when they're finding a new cavity. And we spent a lot of time. We're on our Rev 7 swarm trap. And it really has turned into a very nice way. It's not getting free bees. That's not the part, the important part. The important part is we're getting naturally selected genetics. And now that we have Brock working with us, he's going to do DNA, a lot of other testing on them. Because if things work out, he wants some of our stock for his breeding program, both from Honda and from our stuff. So I'm going to be busy this summer working with Brock and a lot of these projects. So that's basically, there's now that, but these books here are basically kind of on where we're at with feral bees. All these guys have worked with feral bees or have done a lot of work with biology. You know, you got to remember, you newer beekeepers, beekeeping is applied biology. I see a lot of bee clubs, they talk about bees and how to do something, but very few of them spend a lot of time talking about the biology and physiology and bees and the pheromones and all that. Because when you're working bees, you got an experienced beekeeper after a few years, you got to have all this in your mind when you're working with bees. When Joe Lackshaw gets out there and works his bees, believe me, he knows exactly what's going on and why it's going on. So we're going through a paradigm shift, and change is difficult. But if we get to work our way through, and some of our beekeepers have gone through this paradigm shift. I have one guy over in Clark County, he's got 50 colonies of bees, and he's been swarm trapping for several years. He doesn't he treats lightly. I don't think this year, yeah, he still treated lightly this year. I have a couple over in other side of Springfield. Dr. Mona Hess, she's her expertise, she has a PhD in animal husbandry from University of California. They have 18 colonies of bees. They haven't treated for 8 years because of their gene pool, where they're at. Gene pools are different, but they have a mature gene pool, and they don't treat. They don't have to. And I have access to their stock. The point I'm making here is we've got about 15 different gene pools we've identified that are isolated. We've got 5 more gene pools that we're going to be working with and sending out the feeders here when it warms up a little bit to see if we find feral bees and take the risk, put out swarm traps and see if we're lucky enough that we get feral stock that have high chewing behavior. On the other, all the other phenotypes or the behaviors that we need, that they're taking care of the mites. So I'm going to stop there. Now, come on, guys, you have some questions. You must have. Come on.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, kind of anecdotally, if you know, these colonies that you see with this high chewing behavior, if they're, you know, proving to be, you know, what their production compares to some of the more commercial stocks. Or are they keeping like smaller brood nests like you see in some lines, or, you know, what they look like productivity wise?
I have about 100 colonies of bees that I'm responsible for, and they are in either 5 frame or 8 frame or 10 frame, 5 deeps high. So I have 10 frame supers that are so-called nailed to the ground and have large clusters. And our production, honey production, is on the order of about anywhere from 100 to 300 pounds per colony. And they're gentle. They start flying about 40 degrees, 41 degrees, if the sun's shining on their entrance in the morning, and they're late flyers. They'll fly in a light rain. And I didn't show you any of the propolis, the bee glue. Oh boy, do they, over the last 5 years, we started noticing, and every year they increase on the amount of propolis that they use. We have some colonies that the entrances are plugged with propolis, and the 3/4 inch entrances that are plugged full of propolis, except for what they want. And I use insulated inner covers with a vent hole on top. And some of the colonies go up, and then they're 5/8 or 3/4 inch holes up top. And they'll plug those holes down to 1 bee space. Lots of propolis. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt when you're moving frames around, but you know, that helps with some of the diseases they think, and that's some of the work that Purdue's going to be working on, is on the viruses and what the propolis, because we see the propolis increase every couple of years. We all get together. We know we have a network of people that we talk about back and forth. And one of the things we've noticed over the last several years, that the bees are using more propolis. And it's neat to see that happen. So very productive colonies, but you have to have them in an area where you have to, you know, we haven't had a scientific study with control colonies. It's all anecdotal. But when you, at the end of the year, one guy that has 50 colonies, I don't know what he produced this year, how many thousand pounds. He produces a lot of honey. I haven't asked Phil what his total amount of honey was from his colonies. It's huge. He's in a good area. I produced a lot of honey out of Wright Pat this year. My buddy up, and I have other people do my extracting. I'm too old to do it. It's heavy and it's sticky and everything else. It's a hot job. I don't do it. I let others extract for me. And they have a lot of, right now, because of lack of festivals and things like that, there's a lot of honey in buckets right now. they're having some problems at times getting rid of their honey. But they're high honey producers. That's one of the things that we watch, and we haven't had any colonies. I've had colonies in the past when I was using other stock that some colonies were not good honey producers. These are.
Yeah, that's why I asked. That was kind of my experience with some different stocks. They just they don't really get as big. So thank you.
Sure. Yep. What else, guys?
Dwight, I want to share some with the group. Fella just asked the question, Chris Cree, is the reason that I'm into beekeeping. I want to thank you, Chris, publicly for getting me into this. It's taken me a long ways. So, thanks.
Always.
Come on, guys. There's going to be some more questions.
Yeah, I've got one for you. You talk about the feral bees, and I've often wondered how they survive weather conditions when in the springtime we encounter a lot of rain.
Well, because of the way we manage our colonies, my colonies, as an example, go into winter with a lot of honey. And I'm always watching it to make sure that they have plenty of stores. And if there's a lot of rain, I feed Ultra Beef protein patties from Man Lake. Ultra Bee, not anything else. Ultra Bee has basically, from what they say in their description, it's about 45% crude protein. And I use Ultra Bee protein flour. And we feed a lot of protein flour early in the spring. And we know the first day that the willow or the skunk cabbage or the willow trees bloom. Because when that happens, the bees disappear from our feeders and they're bringing in either white pollen from the skunk cabbage or orange or yellow pollen from the willow trees. So yeah, we have to, if you do a lot of reading, one of the things that almost all of the authors mention is nutrition, nutrition, nutrition. You know, I started beekeeping back in the day when you could produce honey next to a cornfield because it had a lot of weeds in Pennsylvania. I was born and raised on a farm in Pennsylvania. And we had a dairy herd, we had pasture fields, we had fence rows, we had alfalfa fields, we had clover fields, and plus we had a large family orchard, and we had a lot of, we had chestnut trees, we had sycamore trees, all the nut trees, black locust trees. We had, you know, it was great. Well, in a lot of cases where people have bees, that doesn't exist. And that's one of the things when I do a bee school, I am really on people that've got to make sure. I have seen somebody put a couple of colonies of bees in an area, and you look around and there's about several thousand acres of corn. Those bees aren't going to survive. So we take a lot of time talking about nutrition during a beginning bee school, because you got to have it, and it has to be natural, the best you can. But if you have to feed, you have to feed. Every year is different.
True.
And that's why it takes several years. As you new guys, don't give up. If you lose your bees, don't give up. And try to find somebody that can help you and to answer your questions and work with you. Typically, there's well, I don't know whether I think I do. Hold on a minute. Right here. There's a book called The Diffusion of Innovation. In my work at in my work life, I was an engineer at General Motors as a systems engineer. At the time I was there, we were bringing in new technology on electrical control systems back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And when I first started, I was a new kid in the block, And it took me a while to convince the plant manager to bring in some new technology and try it on something that wasn't real critical. But once it was successful, and once the production superintendent started to see his efficiency increase and his productivity and quality increase, boy, you know, you look at all of this, when you get in here, it's tough. And this is where we're at right now with our technology that we're in, with Zell and I are in. But when you get up in here, you get enough people in the early majority working together and having success stories. And then you get up. Why did I lose my screen?
Are we at a time?
We must be at a time.
I don't think so.
No, it's not time related.
It says end of slideshow.
Because I lost.
It
Anyway,
says maybe hit your back arrow on your keyboard.
Yeah, you skipped forward too far. You're at the end of this slide.
oh, I'm sorry. Duh. Anyway, when you get up here in critical mass, you have enough people being successful, word of mouth, that you have, and things take off. And that's what happened to us at General Motors and at Wright-Patterson. When we got to be successful, people joined in and we had credibility and people listened to me. One day I was talking to two divisional VPs at GM. One was Chevy and one was the research center up in Detroit. And I was explaining a project to them. And after I was done, I wasn't asking for money. When I was done, they asked how much money I would need for the project. I said $250,000. They gave it to me on the spot because I had the reputation of being successful and doing all this work. So, and this, Zell and I talk about it all the time. Right now we have an uphill battle. We're down in here. We get some of you clubs working together. Yeah, we're going to have some failures, but we're going to work through them. So then when we get up here, we're there. And there's a book called The Diffusion of Innovation. It's 500 pages. It's the science of how to get people to change. So I wasn't going to show it to you, but somebody brought it up. So anyway.
Dwight, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you have a successful solution for your swarm traps that you use as a you know, what do you use in your swarm traps for feral?
Okay.
Is my question.
I started out, and give you a five-minute overview on this. I started out in 2012 with an 8-frame deep. It worked. Hole was a little bit too small, but it worked. 10 frames work. But what we have now, and most of it, well, not all of us, but a lot of us are using, and I don't have a picture of it, 5-frame nuke, 2 of them, one on top of each other. And then below it, we take a 5-frame medium super, put a bottom on it, a plywood bottom on it, and put a slot, a horizontal slot about 1.5 inches from the floor. And the top super, we have 4 frames of foundation. Center frame is drawing comb, black, no honey, it's empty, it's clean. The bottom super with frames, 4 frames of foundation, 1 frame of drying comb. Now, if you have extra comb, you go ahead and put extra comb in it, but that's the bare minimum. You need to have 2 frames of comb. Why? Because the top comb, they'll start putting honey in it. The bottom comb, typically, the queen will lay eggs in the bottom super while they're drawing out the foundation. That bottom medium is empty. That's what they use to measure. And we have videos of those girls going in there and they're walking that 5-frame super measuring. You can see them. It is awesome to watch how bees think. And once we get swarm in there, we take the bottom, what we call the bottom adapter off, and put a 5-frame screen bottom board on. And then we start feeding it. We move it, we move it back to a yard someplace, an isolated yard, typically what we like to do, and start feeding it to help them draw the foundation out and get them built up so that within about 3 weeks, you put a third 5-frame super on. I like to get them up to 4 5-frame deep supers full of bees. Now they're ready to go into an 8-frame hive. And that's what we did at Honda this year, as an example. That's how I taught them. And it worked very well. So that is our Rev 7. Oh, lure. Come on, lemongrass oil.
I was going to ask that. That's what I have. Okay.
We use a Ziploc bag, and we fold a paper towel and put about 20 drops of lemongrass oil on, put a twig on the side so that the gas escapes. And so it's about a ½ an inch wide that the gas escapes and the twig keeps it from closing. Put that on the bottom adapter. And our success rate has gotten better and better every year. Now, having said that, we think we see anecdotally that we have more and more feral swarms now than we did, say, 3 years ago. Their swarms are larger, and we see a lot more swarms. But that is if you only want to use 10-frame, I have a buddy that only uses 10-frame, but here's what you have to do. You can't put 10 frames in it. You can put 5 frames in because they have to have empty space to measure. I'm lazy. I'd rather do it my way because I don't have to worry about hurrying up and going out there and putting frames in before they start drawing wild comb out, because they'll do that. And we've had that issue. I don't do that anymore. All mine are 5/5s with the adapter. I set them out there, and if I don't get to them in time, they're okay. They'll be okay for a couple weeks.
Do you have yours down on the ground, or do you feel that you need to put them up in the air somewhere?
Barrels, plastic barrels, 50-gallon barrels.
On top of the barrels?
Yep. Right. I put 2 eye bolts. Oh, I wish I had. I have all this, and I have another presentation on feral swarm trapping. Barrel, 2 eye hooks on either side, big ones, and I use that to strap the nuke on, or the swarm trap on, and set them and lash them either with stakes, snow fence stake into the ground, and strap the barrel to the stakes. Or if I see someplace that looks like a decent place to put a barrel without a stake, I strap it to a tree or something. Now here's the key. The plastic is those plastic in those buckets or those barrels is porous. And I have pictures when a swarm lands on that barrel while they're going in. Those bees are so full of honey, their wax glands are just producing wax like crazy. And by the time they get in there, they leave 2 things. They leave a swarm scent, as Larry Connor calls it, and they leave white wax. Last year, we had that happen up at Honda. We caught a swarm. We caught 4 swarms altogether within 2 weeks. And I know very well, because of the pheromone that those other the first swarm left, it drew other swarms. In fact, this fall, we had the barrel there, and somebody went out and looked. There were a few bees on that barrel without a swarm trap. They smelled the scent. Pheromones are a big thing. And if you read Seeley's his last book, he mentions pheromones in some cases. So, originally he said, put them up 25 feet. Yep, okay, fine. You don't have to do that. I have some funny stories. I had stored a swarm trap on top of the flower pot in my backyard. Guess what? It was only 1.5 feet off the ground. Caught a swarm on it last summer. So we have that happen too. In fact, we're to the point now, we're very careful. We don't put swarm traps and store them for a while or in any empty equipment, because you're apt to have a swarm come in if you're in an area where there's feral stock. We've had some of that happen too. So we got to be careful so we don't have a mess to clean up with wild comb and things like that. We like to use old used equipment. I buy new nukes every year, 5-frame nukes every year. I use those for my nukes, and I use last year's nukes for swarm traps because they have propolis and they have wax, and they've been used, and bees like that.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes,
This is
Barbara.
Barb. So you're saying that, sorry, this is a trick question. You're saying that you use old equipment. Are you using old equipment that has been certified that it's disease-free?
It's all my own equipment, and it has never had any disease on it. It's a good point.
Do you rotate your frames every 3 to 5 years?
Yep, I rotate.
Okay, that's good.
For those of you Barb brings up a good point. Don't buy used equipment to use for swarm traps, because there is, as Barb will tell you, there is for American foul brood lurking in the background. So what we're doing is we're using our own equipment, and every year I have one of my kids that has I gave him my solar extractor, my solar wax extractor. And I give him my old frames because he's a blacksmith, besides being a beekeeper and a fireman paramedic. And he uses wax in his blacksmithing. So I get rid of my frames. Now, the thing that we're doing now that we have the black plastic triple waxed foundation, I'm going to try to use some of my good frames that are still in pretty good shape, are in excellent shape, and dig out the groove, and you snap the plastic foundation back in it and reuse it. But if it doesn't work, I'll just throw everything away, and because I can buy frames from my buddies up in Ashland County, assembled good wood frames from Dennis Koblance for I think they were 95 cents assembled this year. I buy that, and then I buy a plastic foundation for $1.10 a sheet. For about $2, it's snap and play. No more assembling frames, no more pulling wire, none of that. No way, shape or form. It's less money, and by the time they're done, we have some beautiful looking frames this year, or from this year, last year, drawn out. They're beautiful. I got pictures of them. It's fantastic. Anything else? Come on, guys.
Hey, Dwight, this is Teresa Parker.
Yes, Teresa.
I would just like to encourage all beekeepers to put out swarm traps, even if you don't have feral bees, to catch your own bees if you miss the swarm, so your neighbors don't spray them with pesticides or they end up in someplace they shouldn't be. It's really easy. And I think your plans are online, aren't they? Make a swarm trap?
Yes, I think they are someplace. I don't know where it's at, but I think they are. You bring up a good point, Teresa. Back in the day, Zell and I were talking about this some time ago. Back in the day, all the extension guys recommended that all beekeepers back in the day, they called it putting out they didn't call it a swarm trap. They called it something else, empty hive, to catch their own swarms. But back in those days, they were catching swarms from bee trees. And it's written in Bee Culture magazine. I found an article from W.A. Stevens back in the day. He was telling all the beekeepers in Ohio to set out a bait hive. He called it a bait hive. And this year I set out bait hives, if you want to call them that, or swarm traps around my yards. I didn't catch my own swarms. We think, it's anecdotally, we don't know this, but what we see is we're thinking that feral swarms are attracted to our bee yards. That's something that W.A. Stevens kind of indicated. I don't think there's any research on that. But
I have caught feral swarms right outside my own apiary.
yep, good, thank you. I have too. So good. See, it's not just Dwight's thinking, somebody else has too. That's great. Thanks for mentioning that.
When's the best time to set up your swarm traps?
I like to have mine out the last week in March. This is the reason why. The bees are it's warm weather, typically in last of March. Now we may have some rain, but still the foragers are out collecting nectar and they're looking for nectar and pollen. When they pass a cavity with a hole in it, they remember where that's at. And if they become a scout bee, when a colony gets ready to swarm, a couple of weeks before the cells are capped, typically, this is all research data from Sealy. 500 scouts start flying out to find a new home. And if they happen to be a forager and remember that hole, they'll go and check that swarm trap out or that cavity out. And it is neat to watch when I see one or two bees. And if I have the time, I really go out of my way to go back there day after day and take pictures. It is so cute to watch those girls, especially with I have an iPhone, and take a video of how those girls are in there measuring. It is so cute to watch them. They're smart kids, smart guys, smart girls. I got to be careful. Barb's listening. Smart girls. The girls are smart. And by this time, about the 6th or 7th day, if they have won the debate, look out, because there's going to be at least a couple hundred bees there. Just get out of the way. And if you have the time, we have been lucky enough to video swarms starting to move in, because they want to move in real quick. When you have about 4 or 5 pounds of bees coming at you, you got to get out of the way, because they're going right to that hole. And within 15 minutes, most of them are already in that hole. Not all of them, but most of them are. It's a lot of fun working with feral bees. They got a good personality. It's a relationship with bees. I never had a relationship with bees until I started getting into the feral business. What else, guys?
Dwight, you've talked a couple of times about the genetic research that's going to be coming out of the Purdue Honda work. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, when to expect it, or where to find more about it?
I can't say anything more than that, because there's going to be several papers written. And the rule is that when the grad students are they're going to write papers in research, you can work with them, but you can't tell anybody what's going on until after the research is published. I know there's going to be DNA, and there's going to be some other work in that line, because he's got a lot of Brock's got a lot of ideas. I'll just say, and he told us up front. He told Honda that you guys will be getting our research data. So eventually, it's going to come out. They're not going to hide it and run with it. No, because he wants, Brock is 29 years old. He was married last year. He came down from Toronto, University of Toronto, and he was involved. He got his PhD up there. He got his BS, MS, and PhD up there. And he was involved in Canada, what we're starting here in Ohio. Oh, he's elated that we have somebody, that we have done all this work with the ferals, because they were doing the same thing up in Canada before he moved down here to replace Greg at Purdue. So to me, it's an exciting time. And anything that I can get out of him that he can tell me that I can share with you people, it will be done. We'll have a mechanism where we'll share data. One of the first things we want to do is do the DNA. We did some DNA in another area, and he was not in Ohio, another state with feral bees, and he was excited when he saw what the markers looked like. He says it was great. Now, if any of you have any families anywhere along the Ohio River, you have an inn. Or if you have family along any large river in Ohio or Pennsylvania or Indiana or Illinois or Kentucky, West Virginia, set out swarm traps. I have people that are, I was born and raised in Clarion County, and I have a bunch of young kids over there that are setting out swarm traps. Their families own hundreds of acres of area that's out in the middle of nowhere, and we know there's feral bees there. So we're trying to get some stock from Pennsylvania for Brock, and West Virginia, and Kentucky, Illinois, all the way out to the Mississippi River.
This is Winnie.
Yep.
I'm wondering if knowing when these PhDs are supposed to be granted would give us a sense of timing for the data to the publication of their research.
They won't know until they have the data, Winnie.
Okay, well, okay, so the data first, write the paper, then finally get their PhD, at which point it's published.
Yeah.
Or it's published and then PhD. Okay, thank you.
Soon
I
as
didn't know if they were in a program that had a deadline.
No, most of them, a lot of them are working on grants. In fact, what we're doing, Brock's got grants, and because that's the way the system works.
Okay.
And some of them have deadlines, but a lot of them, it's basically either they're getting getting their master's or their PhD, and they want to get their PhD in about 2 or 3 years. So they get all the data, and then it has to be peer reviewed, and then accepted, and then published. And typically that takes about 6 months to a year after they get the data, because it's peer reviewed by somebody in that field that's an expert that already has a PhD. And they check each other. And the reason they do these research projects is because they're working off of somebody else's research, and they're taking that research and moving it forward, and then somebody else takes their research and moves it on. And if you look at all the footnotes, you see that through the years, starting back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and they just keep on bringing forward.
Thank you, Dwight.
Sure. But Brock, we had an agreement. Brock said, Dwight, as soon as we get some data, we'll share it to you. But they got to be careful, because the rule is you can't share data before the paper is written. That's a law. So that's why we're kind of, some of this stuff we have to wait for.
Hey, Dwight, Med Lutmerding, on the swarm traps, what sort of ventilation do you have in those upper 2 boxes?
None.
Okay. You put a telescoping cover on the
I do.
top box?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I just use regular nuke boxes and turn them into a swarm traps and get a swarm and put them back into a nuke configuration above a screen bottom board.
Okay. Thanks.
Because what I want to do is build them up. I don't know whether I finished that story. I want to build them up. So by the time last of July rolls around, there's some mites there. So we can collect the mites and start looking for chewing behavior right away. And if we see chewing behavior at 40, 50%, we know they're feral. It is what it is. Because we know from research that commercial bees are chewing at about 3% as right now. if you read some of Randy Oliver's data in Scientific Beekeeping website, he'll tell you, he realizes that he's doing a lot of breeding on his own, but he realizes that the feral bees are something that needs to happen. You talk to a lot of the commercial beekeepers, they realize that they need help. They're running out of things to kill mites with because mites are getting resistant to everything they have, and they're using illegal treatments.
So what's popping into my head, this is Winnie again, is that for those of us that are backyard beekeepers, for us to help accept your feral ankle biter queens and increase the population so that there can be more queens that go to the commercial beekeepers to help them.
We have talked about that. What we got to do is we got to get some definite data for the commercial guys. I've already been approached by somebody that is tied to the commercial end of it, and they want some stock. Well, we've got to be careful. We want to give them goods. We want to give them stock that they can start to depend on, because they realize that they need to have something, and it's competition in their end. If they have bees a better stock than their competitors, people will buy them out. So it's going to take time. This is a slow process to get to the point where there are some people that do have some stock that has some chewing behavior on it, but I'm not sure what they're mating their bees with drone wise, and that's an issue right there. They've got to cleanse out there, down south, and I'm not picking on anybody. I just said down south, any place that people are having packaged bees brought into, they have bee trees down there, so they gotta cleanse out the flip over the gene pool. Unfortunately, every time Sue COBA and I meet up, she'll look at me and say, "Well, Dwight," I said, "Yes, Sue, we have to have a good bull in the barnyard." And we both laugh, because the problem is our bulls are flying around uncontrolled. So that's why we have the problem of trying to get a known area with everybody and beekeepers working together with this stock to kind of flip the gene pools. And that's, beekeepers are beekeepers. They're all very independent. So, it is what it is. I'm not finding fault with anybody. The only thing I'm trying to do is help everybody and start getting, you may have to buy, some people may have to buy mated queens from Zale and let those queens go out there, the drones from those queens go out and fly and mate for 2 or 3 years to try to start flipping the gene pool with the feral bees and other bees.
That's what I was thinking, that's what I can do as a backyard beekeeper to help with improving the stock.
Yes.
But it's a matter of letting people know, yes, it's worth for beekeeping as a whole, and in order to get rid of having to put poisons in the hives, to buy one of the stock from the feral stock.
Yes.
The queen from the feral stock.
Yes. And we have to get this word out to everybody we possibly can, so that, theoretically, in a perfect world, you have a bee club someplace that all the beekeepers in a given county go to the same bee club with the same philosophy. Let's flip our gene pool and get this stock if they don't have stock already. There's a lot of people that have feral bees. Teresa had a good point. There's a lot of places that have feral stock that nobody knows about. But if you start sending out swarm traps and start looking for chewing behavior, you might be surprised as to what you have. I have a funny story. Some of you know about Dr. Dewey Caron. He's a researcher in his day. He's retired now. He has the honeybee biology of honeybees book. Good book. He lives out in Oregon. I was doing a Zoom meeting several months ago, and the guy that I was doing the Zoom meeting for had put it on Facebook that I was doing it. Well, Dewey knows Dwight. So he's out in Oregon, and they have a club out there with people that have just formed to work with feral stock. So they tuned me in and listened. Then they asked me to do a Zoom meeting for them out in Oregon. About 2 months later, a beekeeper that's living on an island in the Columbia River sent me 5 images of chewed mites. There's chewing behavior any place that the bees have been left alone for several years with natural selection. They're chewing. I don't care what state you're in. I was talking to Jay Evans at HAS 2 years ago, and there are some feral bees he knows about, like in Montana. They're isolated. They're everywhere. You just got to find them. You got to set out swarm traps. Set out flower feeders. I do first before I see whether if I see. I just look and guess. And I say, oh, anecdotally, I like the diversity on those bees. Dark. Set out swarm trap, and we've been very fortunate. You guys can do the same thing in Fairfield County and around Franklin County and around, yeah, there may be areas. I don't know your area. You may have areas that are just not any feral bees in them, but we don't know that until we start catching some of these swarms and test them with a microscope that costs under $30 or $50. I have some of them. They're not for sale. I have some. I can get you. We can point you to the right people to buy these microscopes with a little bit of training. With screen bottom boards, you can start looking for chewing behavior around July and August in your swarms. It's very easy to do. We have a lot of people now in Ohio doing that, and they're finding feral stock, which is great. Someone's got a bird.
No, it's a clock.
It's a flock? Okay.
Clock, yeah. Sorry about that.
No problem. Is Joe still on or does he leave?
I know. Appreciate everybody's attendance tonight. It's been quite interesting. Appreciate Dwight. The presentation was excellent. Look forward to working with you some more. Seeing if we can get the club members to get involved with you as well. And anytime you've got a presentation or a meeting or something you want to do and need some bodies, give us a call or let us know, and we might be able to help you fill it out. So
I have 2 other presentations. One of it's called Working with Feral Bees. It's a little bit about what you saw tonight. It's not on 40-hour queen cells. It's basically about working with feral bees and some swarm trapping mixed in. That might be of interest to some of you guys. It shows swarm traps. It shows the microscopes. You see the chewing behavior, that aspect of it. So sometime if you need somebody to do another presentation, I have that presentation ready to go. I've got about 5 base presentations about what we're doing with Honda, Purdue, all that technology. So that's not a problem. I want to help you guys.
Well, thanks a lot, Dwight.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Be careful. How many people did we have at the peak? Anybody count?
I think it's about 35.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I had 45 last night up at Mommy Bee Club.
Good.
I'm doing another talk over at Fairfield next month with another club.
Super.
Yeah, I
Well,
got a quick
question.
Do you know if the group up at the Central State University is going to do their queen ring class this year? I know they canceled it last year with COVID and everything.
I can't answer that question. With everything that's going on, I would be surprised if they did, but I don't want to talk about it. If you're looking for a queen wearing class, Zale and I are going to have a queen wearing class in May at his place in Fairfield County. So just FYI, and he's gonna start putting it on Facebook and advertising it. He has a brand new building that he put up, and we had a queen wearing class last year. We social distanced, and it worked very well. And we're going to do it again this year. Our goal is to have probably at least probably 20 people go through it, maybe 25. With our hidden agenda is that some of these guys will join our network, and we'll work with them to start producing some queens from feral stock. And we'll have feral stock at the queen wearing class, and we'll show people how to make a good strong nuke. Theoretically, in a perfect world, the people that attend that class are going to take 48-hour queen cells home with them in their cell starters.
Got it shut off finally.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Well, I think we're going to call a meeting to close. Unless anybody's got other business they want to conduct or questions for Dwight.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
We appreciate your presentation, Dwight. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
And
thanks, Dwight.
And if you want to get a hold of me, you can. I do a lot of texting. I'm on email. I'm around. And you can always find me one way or the other.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you, Dwight.
Sure. Take care, guys.
Take care. Have a good evening.
Same to you guys.
Bye-bye.
See you, Dwight.
Thank you.
Sure. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.